Rodgers got into this thing. He said there's too many GOATs out there with quarterbacks and best arm, and I thought it was a little disingenuous. It's like, no, there's not. Everybody knows Brady's the GOAT. Nobody argues there's a second GOAT. And I did put, we were talking as a staff during the break, I put the quarterbacks, I kind of put the 12 best quarterbacks I've ever seen, and there's a couple really close, Warren Moon, Dan Fouts. These are the 12 best quarterbacks I've ever seen, and I put them in 3 tiers. And let's just stay on them for a second. These are the all-time super talents, meaning whether they won or lost, they literally played the game differently. It looks different when Aaron Rodgers throws the ball. It just looks different. And to be in this group, to be in any of my groups, you got to be a starter for 5 years. I'm not going to count any, I'm not going to count Mahomes. He's been in the league not long enough. You got to give me 4 or 5 years. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes got hurt tomorrow, I can't put him in on all-time lists. I just can't. So I think Favre and Aaron Rodgers, I mean, how rare is that? Back-to-back quarterback, same organization. Dan Marino and John Elway. Now, Elway, of course, had a couple of championships. And Marino never got it. But they're just, I never felt like coaching made them talented. They just looked different, played different, and regardless of the coach, regardless of winning and losing, they did stuff nobody else could do. And then I would say the super winners. Now, many of them, they're all talented. But they either had better defenses. Maybe they were better leaders. Maybe there was less ego. Maybe Bradshaw, Aikman, Brady, Montana. They were just the most productive. And again, this is not, even the NBA, you need a second or third star. It's not a shock. One had Bill Walsh, one had Jimmy Johnson, one had Chuck Noll, and one had Belichick. 4 of the best 8 coaches, 10 coaches, league history. They were the all-time super winners. And you could argue, and I would agree, that Brady is the GOAT. Then I would go to the super unique club. And I'm not saying they're not talented and not productive, but they just changed the game. Breeze's accuracy, he's the most accurate thrower of the football I've ever seen. Russell Wilson and Steve Young are the greatest playmakers I have ever seen. Where they're both great pocket throwers and unbelievable. Maybe Lamar could eventually get there if he became a better pocket thrower. And then Peyton Manning, to me, and I know you look at this group, but Peyton literally intellectually changed the game. Is that he would go to the line with 3 plays, audible to a 4th. I mean, you just talked. I mean, like Tony Dungy, and a Hall of Fame coach, is like, yeah, you just do the offense. You just take care of the offense. I'll do the defense. I think Peyton changes the way even Brady played. Peyton has forced the sport. I mean, I grew up in an era where you could just be a little bit of a dumb old jock with a big arm and play and win a lot of games. Peyton forced you to think the game, not play it. You had to think it, not just play it. And he forced Brady to be better. He forced everybody to really, if you're not intellectually, cerebrally engaged against Peyton, he's going to humiliate you. And I said Patrick Mahomes is the only player I've seen who I think could be in all 3. All-time talent, productive winner, and really unique. I mean, left-handed throws. I mean, we never talked about that, even with like a Steve Young. He didn't change the hand he's throwing the ball with. So, and I think Mahomes has a really good chance to be at least in the super talent, super winner category. I don't know. I mean, it'd be hard for me to not see him win 2 more Super Bowls. I just, barring an injury. In fact, it's funny. I like Josh Allen. I am deeply concerned that Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, is going to leave Josh Allen. That concerns me for Josh, that he'll never quite be this good because of his coordinator. We've seen great quarterbacks. Matt Ryan's very good. Not the same without Kyle Shanahan. Whereas Mahomes, Andy Reid's going, no, Andy Reid will never leave. This is it, baby. You don't leave Mahomes.
Look what happened to the Eagles.
What happened to Carson Wentz? We don't think he can play now. So that's what worries me about Josh Allen, that his coordinators, Brian Daboll's getting the head job. It's going to be the Chargers. It's going to be somebody. It's going to be the Jags. It's going to be somebody. He's going to get it. So the other story today, which is interesting. So there's a story out there. There's audio of Tom Cruise yelling and screaming and berating his staff. And I was kind of okay with it because his intent, he was screaming at the staff to wear a mask. And in it, you can hear him say, the industry is dying. People are dying. The industry's dying. I'm in calls with producers and movie studios all night. We cannot shut down the production of this, or these movies will not be made. So his intent was not ego gratification during the screaming. It was, do you understand that if we get a COVID outbreak, the movie shuts down? And now, was he debasing people? Was he over the top? Yes, kind of gross. But his intent, he was yelling about the right stuff. I just thought he was a little Christian Bale for me. But I kind of defend him. So I've always said this. Like, I separate art from artist. I understand certain industries, like Michael Jordan. I covered him. I remember going and watching a playoff game. Michael Jordan had his own locker room, and then the rest of the Bulls were in the other because he was so big, and there were so many media with Michael. He had to have his own locker room. Otherwise, you couldn't get around the Bulls locker room. Like, I understand the star power in the NBA. LeBron is just more important than the rest of the league. So was Shaq. So was Magic. So was Bird Michael. The James Harden story, though, bothers me. And maybe it's simply because he doesn't win. If James Harden won more, would I be willing to let him literally be late to practice, late to film session, skip practices, and tell everybody when the plane takes off? Maybe I really don't have a problem with what James Harden is doing. I have a problem that he doesn't win enough, because Michael golfed on playoff game days. But Michael won, so what can I say? So do I have a problem with star treatment? If Tom Cruise did Mission Impossible and nobody went and saw it, he'd be a jerk. I allow it because Mission Impossible is one of the 3 or 4 great,
movie franchises
of all time. And so it's funny about Harden. I'm asking myself the question, do I have a problem with his action, or do I have a problem with the result, which is he dies in the playoffs? He literally erodes.
I mean, we watched The Last Dance together. You saw the
oh my God
treatment that Dennis Rodman got during the season.
That's a great point.
And Dennis Rodman was not Michael Jordan, but he was absolutely an element to those championships, and they had to make some adjustments for Dennis Rodman's behavior during the season, because that's what he needed to do. Yes, if you win, you get to do things like that. Life is not fair, but that's what it is. This is the society and the business that he's in.
Well, like we said, Hollywood, Christian Bale has a legendary tape. He's probably the best actor in the world. So we allow everything he's in, he's great. So we allow Christian Bale to act like that. If his movie's bombed, he would be, I could name 4 other actors who are difficult. We would just kind of think of you as a weirdo.
Yeah.
But I think Hollywood and the NBA is, if you win, we understand. Like, it's not farming. It's not accounting. It is Hollywood and the NBA.
It's a competitive industry.
And it's also, you have so much impact as a star that if you don't allow it, I mean, James Harden is going to get signed. Philadelphia would sign him this afternoon.
But also, you can argue that his behavior is affecting the winning.
That's a good point. Listen, when Westbrook's his friend and he's the reasonable one, and Westbrook.
But to Nick's point, Westbrook is known as being a hard worker. He is always in the gym.